Hello?
Hello?
Hi, Dimple.
Hey, I see you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Awesome.
How are you?
A little under the weather.
Oh, no.
Yeah. So it's a
You have a
bummer.
cold or something?
I can't tell if it's allergies or a cold. It's something, though. I hope everyone gets my email.
There was something wrong with the other URL?
Yeah, something was wrong with it, but at least we're on and it's working. So Eddie Martinez is going to join us at 11:20. So we're going to use this time to just talk about who's going to ask what questions for the interview.
Okay.
I think we're just going to assign you, sorry, we're going to assign you with development. Do you have the document on your computer?
I have it open in front of me, yes.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so if you want to pick 2 to 3 questions to ask on development, that should be sufficient. That's what we've been doing so far. And, you don't have to tell us what it is, but when we get to that section, we'll just hand it off to you, and then you can ask him about his skills in that area.
Okay, I'm reading them right now.
Okay, cool.
I'm gonna go grab a notepad really quick. Be right back. So who else is joining the call?
Erwin just said he doesn't have a Google account to log in. I've never heard of that in my life.
So this is Eddie Martinez. So he's not gonna join?
I'm giving him some instructions. Let me ask him to call me. I might have to. There he is. Erwin.
Hello.
Cool.
I was able to figure out the password thing.
Okay, awesome. We are just waiting on. I'm pretty sure Jay's going to show up. I'm not sure about Rogerio.
Okay. Hi, Jorge.
Hi, Erwin. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good, good.
Sorry.
Some of the questions for the interview.
So, Erwin, do you want to take the same categories as before? I believe that you asked questions about staff management.
Yeah.
Okay, great. And if we're if we're short on people, I can pick up a couple of categories. And I think we all could.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like we can kind of, you and I can ask the same kinds of questions we asked before, and then maybe Jorge can ask the questions that, since he's on the development committee or co-chair of the development committee, maybe he can ask the questions related to fundraising and fiscal management.
Yeah, we actually just talked about that before you joined.
Oh, great. So Eddie's calling in at 11:20.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
So who do you say it's also joining from the board? Jay is?
It should be Jay as well as Rogerio confirmed. Everyone who's CC'd on the email except for Craig was supposed to be joining. Oh, actually, Jay just called me. She probably needs help. I'm going to go on mute for a second here.
Okay.
Yeah, 1 second. BRB.
So it looks like he's been an ED for 2.5 years or more at the Latino Equality Alliance. Are you familiar with that organization, Jorge?
I am, and I know Eddie through just knowing people in the community for a long time. He used to be on the board, or I believe also at some point executive director or some sort of leadership role he had with the Wallace Memorias. I think he's one of the founding members of the group from years and years ago.
Okay.
The Latino Equality Group, he started that, which is, I think, remarkable. I don't know how many, 7 or so years ago, maybe longer than that. I think it was just through social media, and then it just became, a more robust program that I believe currently is sort of under the umbrella of what the LA Gay and Lesbian Center Latino targeted programs are. So they're housed in the same building with the Gay and Lesbian Center in downtown. They do mostly social services targeting the Latino community and the Spanish-speaking community. I'm not sure how big they are now or where they are now, but they've been around for a while. And he's been the creator of that, and helping with growing and creating partnerships with bigger organizations like the center to be where it is now. I mean, I know him personally just through some friends that we have. He's a great guy, with a great vision of creating something and making it grow. But I'm interested to hear what he has to say about him and his experience and why he wants to come.
Okay.
Did we approach him to interview, or how did that come through?
He may have come through John Guile.
Okay.
Yes, he came through Jungo. We're talking about Eddie, right?
Yeah. I mean, Eddie's a very well-known guy in the community, especially for what he's done for the Latino community. I never work with him, so I don't know what his work style, management style is. But for what I see, what he's done and he's helped create, I mean, it's some remarkable stuff. Did we circulate his resume? I'm sorry, I'm just being sort of out of touch. We're on vacation the last 4 weeks.
Yeah, if you check my email from yesterday, I believe I included a link to the Google Drive account. So when you click on the Google Drive link, you'll see an Eddie Martinez folder in there. You click on that, and it should pull up his cover letter and resume.
Hi, y'all. I joined. Sorry I'm late.
Hi, Jay's forehead.
Hello there.
That's on
Oh, sorry.
purpose.
Can you see me now? I'm like looking for files, so I don't even know what's on the screen. Oh, there I am. There you go.
Have we divvied up the questions yet?
Actually, so Jorge's going to take the development questions. Do you want to do interest and motivation, Jay? Do you want to do the first two categories, interest and leadership? I'll do digital. Jorge will do fundraising. Erwin will do staff.
How much time do we have? How much we allotted?
We have about an hour to an hour and a half with Eddie.
Oh, let's try to keep it at 45.
Agreed, just in case.
And Jay, just choose like 2 questions in each category, not all of them.
Okay,
right.
Thank you.
Do you want me to do fiscal management too?
Yeah, fiscal management, board relations and development. I guess that's you as well, Jorge.
I picked some already from that section.
Okay. Anyone want to take strategic planning? If we even get that far? Sometimes we don't need to.
Get there.
Okay, and I'll do the other general section at the very bottom. But what usually ends up happening is the person is, if they're great at answering the questions, they usually answer a couple of questions at a time without us having to do any extra work. So, okay, cool. I think we're all set. He'll be logging on in about 6 minutes. And I'm going to blast out to the board a link where they can watch this live or later.
Are you leading this call, Dimple?
Does someone else want to just greet him, and so I'm not coughing in his ear the whole time? I'm going to be on mute most of it. Erwin, do you want to?
Jay, where are you?
Exactly, right? I'm in the belly of a snake. I'm in New York in my office.
Oh, okay.
You see the AIDS, the picture?
We see the ceiling.
Do you see the LAX picture from our photo 17?
No, we see a part of your forehead, the top of your head, and the ceiling. There we go. That's better.
Oh, there it is.
You see
But
it?
now we don't see you.
That's a good plan.
Okay.
That's a good plan.
I had forgotten this was 2-way.
Dimple, we don't see you.
I turned my camera off because I'm a hot mess with all the coughing and being sick. Yeah, unless you want to see me coughing on the camera every 2 seconds.
Dimple, does he understand where we're at and just short-term goals and long-term goals so that I can skip his understanding and just assume he knows all these things?
I don't think he knows much. He was actually, he was handled by the broader search committee. And all I really got from them was his resume and cover letter, which apparently came from John Guile.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Well, I think, Erwin, you might want to just do a quick introduction of who we are, where we are, and where we're heading.
Well, I mean, I could just tell them that we've interviewed a few other candidates. We've done the same process with them in person that we're doing with him online, and gone through similar questions. And you know, he's probably the last person we'll interview, and then we'll the executive committee will make a recommendation to the board, and we hope to make a decision in September. Does that sound right?
Yeah, and I was also thinking about, like, you know, what the organization, you know, where we are, who we are, and outside of the search for an ED.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'll invite him to ask questions about the organization, but I'm, you know, I can give him a little bit of background, but I'm hoping that he's done his own homework.
Okay.
If he doesn't know who we are and hasn't done that homework, then I think that says a lot about him not being prepared.
Agreed.
Well, yeah. I guess as we go through our sections, we can talk about, like, things that he might not know, like where we are with fundraising, what our goals are, you know, where we are with, you know, launching a digital experience and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
And then of course he will have room for questions at the end for us.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go on mute.
Trying to narrow these questions to just 2. Hold on. I got 1, 5, 6, and 9.
I'm watching the live stream of this Google Hangout, and it's actually looking pretty good. I was a little nervous about it all.
Oh, you mean like for people who are just tuning in?
Yeah, from the board. They can't join the chat, but they can just watch what we're doing.
Got it. And do we know that Eddie has the new dial-in?
I emailed him with all of us, so hopefully he'll get that. Actually, I'm going to go into the old link and try to talk to him there. 1 second.
Erwin, be sure to tell him you're vice chair.
Okay, he was in the other Google Hangout, so I just spoke to him there, and he's coming over here now. Thank you for calling Dell Tech Support. Okay, here we go. Eddie, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Hi.
Awesome. We see you now, and we hear you.
I had a chance to fix my hair, so good to see.
All right. Erwin, do you want to go ahead and take over here and do some intros? And
Sure.
Okay, thanks.
Hey, Eddie, I'm Erwin Rappaport. I'm vice chair of the board and co-chair of the Stories Committee. And I'm a lawyer. I live in LA and New Orleans. I'm actually in New Orleans right now. But thank you for doing this. Appreciate you dressing up for us just like I did. And,
Thank you.
yeah, thanks for doing this virtually. We've interviewed a few other candidates. You're I think the final one, and so we did a similar format with them. We did sort of a round table with questions, and so we're planning on trying to make a decision, or at least we'll make a recommendation as the executive committee to the board of directors, and then hopefully we'll make a decision in September. So we're definitely narrowing this down and want to get it resolved quite soon.
Got it.
So does everyone else want to just sort of go around and introduce themselves? I guess you've spoken to Dimple, but maybe Dimple can tell you a little bit more about what she does on the board.
Hi, Eddie. Dimple Thacker here. I'm on the executive committee with the board. I also sit on the tech committee, which is why I'm in charge of all this video conferencing craziness. And I'm a little under the weather, so I'm not on camera, and I'll probably be on mute most of the call, but thank you for joining us. I also do, my background's in technology and social media, and so that's the expertise I bring to the board. So thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Eddie, this is Jay Hobart. I'm here from New York City. I just recently moved from West Hollywood, and I'm now living in New York. I come to all the board meetings. I'm on the executive committee and also serve on the governance committee. I'm a trial lawyer and look forward really to meeting you in person someday, which hopefully will be soon. And thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Hi, Eddie. This is Jorge. We know each other. So I've been on the board of directors for the AIDS Monument for about a little more than a year and a half. I'm on the executive committee for the board and also the co-chair of the development committee, since I have an extensive background in doing fundraising in the community and bringing those skills to the board. Currently do real estate, you know that. So yeah, that's it.
Thank you.
And so, Eddie, I assume you know some basic stuff about our organization, what we're doing. But just as a general matter, we are building an AIDS monument in West Hollywood Park. We've raised a substantial sum of money thus far toward the cost of the physical monument. And we're also at this point further developing ideas for and putting into motion a so-called digital experience that will be a robust website, and we're figuring out how we're going to create a digital experience at the monument site so that people can have the equivalent of a guided tour or a personalized tour, access information about basically people we lost. So we would be celebrating the people we lost. We would be we would be remembering the people we lost. We would be celebrating caregivers and political leaders and activists, and we'd be educating people. And so part of that would be creating or sourcing and curating video and other digital content so that people can have a more enhanced experience beyond just visiting the physical monument, walking around it, especially for people who don't come to the monument knowing a lot about the history of HIV/AIDS. So one of the things that the executive director will be doing is helping us to finish the process of design development for the physical monument, the artwork that would be in West Hollywood Park. That will involve working with the city and its various committees and the process that we have to go through to get approved by the city. The monument itself will be owned by the city. Once it's completed and installed, we're going to gift it to the city. and so they will then manage the physical structure in the park once it's installed. And then it's still to be determined whether or not the city would take on any responsibility for the digital experience, or whether that would instead be maintained and further developed by the board. We have a board of, I think we're at 17 people now. It's a very active board. We have various committees. We have development, design, marketing, and tech is a combined committee, stories committee, the executive committee, and we have a governance committee. Am I missing any, guys?
No.
And John Guile is our development consultant. He helps us with fundraising, but we would like to bring in someone who has fundraising experience to supplement John's work and to work alongside him. We anticipate that the physical monument will be installed in probably the summer of 20. Are we at 2019? No, 2020, right? 2020. So it's it's a process that has been long and rewarding. We've done a really great job in raising money, and it's been a bit slower than originally anticipated because the process of developing the monument, developing the park itself has taken longer than expected. So when the park is delayed, it delays our plans because we're going to be the last thing that they install in the park. So we have a series of questions that we're just figuring we would go through with you, and then we'll turn it over to you to ask questions of us. So if that's okay, we'll just proceed with the first set of questions.
Good.
Eddie, this is Jay again. I'm gonna be talking with you about your interests, your motivations, sort of your style. Part of our goal is to make sure both of us thrive in this relationship. We want you to be in a happy place and something that furthers your own career goals. And we also want to know what you value and your motivations, what kind of working environment you're interested in, so that we can make sure it's a good fit. We both want to thrive. And so my first question on your interests is, why do you want to assume the leadership of this organization at this time in our own evolution, as well as your career evolution?
Okay. Little background on myself. At a very young age, I realized that in my journey in life that I was to be of service, to help people. When I was young, I was bullied, and I realized that we can create change if we educate and inspire people and to make a community a better place. Those values I held on into through high school, into college, and it was about 22 years ago I had an opportunity to meet a human being that wanted to build an AIDS monument at Lincoln Park. He told me he was already into that whole process of building a monument, and it inspired me because he wanted to make sure that a memorial will help impact families in the community and make a difference, and it's about the future. So I joined that journey. Since then, over the years, I really believe no matter what aspect of a development stage of any type of project, you have a role. And in that role, you could utilize your talent to help push that project forward. I think myself, I have about 22 years of experience in organizing community, uplifting voices, knowing how to work with different individuals. I think that's so more important. I know this organization, it's not really a service organization, but you're building a monument. It's a project, it's a movement. And to me, I would be honored to be part of that movement as one piece of the puzzle to help push it forward. I think this moment's a very critical stage. I think you need someone to really be a voice for the community and to know how to engage members of the community. I think AIDS is a disease that we need to really take a look at its history, the historic context of what happened over the years, and understand how we cannot allow this pandemic to happen again. And so this having a monument, it's so important. It's so important for West Hollywood, for LA County, for California, and for the nation and the world. And I just want to have the opportunity to share my leadership with this organization and get you to the finish line. I really believe that the role of the ED is to make the board members and the donors and the supporters look good, because that's the role of the ED.
Well, that leads into my next question, which is, how do you define a strong leader or good leadership? What is your idea of those two concepts, and how you would serve in those roles personally?
I believe leadership is to inspire and improve. I think we're working as a collective unit, and that we all have certain type of unique talent and skills to give. And I think a leader is able to listen, to know what that talent is, and then just look at the overall picture and see how we could work together as an assembly line to get to the finish line. And it's to inspire people. You know, we need to inspire each other and the board and whatever support staff and volunteers there is, as well as donors, because it's building a monument is not easy. It's a process, and sometimes it can be stressful. And I think what a leader comes in is to listen and to make sure we all provide self-care, but also to make sure that they lead everybody forward, and to make sure that everybody moves forward inspired, and that their skills are uplifted to contribute to this project.
And along those lines, what has been your role in developing the vision and strategy for the future of organizations with which you've worked? Like, tell us about one of your big wins and a situation where you weren't successful, for example. But just overall, can you give us your role in developing vision and strategy, and then give us an illustration of a win and a learning experience?
Yeah. Well, I'll go back to when I was working for the Wallace Memorias. I studied business marketing and college, and I was thinking I'll probably be wearing a tie in downtown LA. But I went through the grassroots community organizing aspect, and I realized, and listening to someone that had a vision building an AIDS monument, that there's certain components that will get you to the finish line. You know, you got to have community buy-in. You got to have people that really believe in the cause to support the efforts, and you really got to have a strategic plan how to get to the finish line. You know, one is building community support. One is how do you make sure you have sustainability, and also how do you make sure that you have all the team members in place to get to that finished product. I think building the monument in the Latino community was a big challenge. We had to deal with stigma. We had to deal with homophobia, AIDS phobia. And what we did in terms of organizing community is that we went door to door, knocking, talking to people. We went to high schools, we went to churches. We really started telling the story that at the time, in terms of homophobia, that AIDS is not a gay disease. AIDS is a human disease. And that in order to tackle this issue, in order to prevent further stigma and people being rejected, we need to have a dialogue in the community. And I think through dialogue, through community engagement, we were able to win support for the monument and get city approval for the monument. But at the same time, we got to realize that it was a journey, and in journey, there's certain steps you have to get to the finish line. I'll answer your question.
And what about a situation in which you weren't successful?
Situation where I would, well, let's see. There has to be one, because no one's perfect. I think, you know what, working for Latino Quality Alliance today, with this organization, as that organization was founded 10 years ago as a response to Proposition 8. where there was a need to educate the community, and in hope of a future world where everyone's equal and everyone's respecting and supporting each other. I think the challenge where we have and trying to build support is that we were not really engaging youth at the time, because at the time we were just thinking if we engaged adults, we win support. But we realized that if we wanted to move forward, we need to be more engaged with youth. And so because of that, now today we do a lot of engagement with youth in schools in terms of leadership development, mentoring, and uplifting their voices, which also has an impact on their families. So I think the challenge we have in the past is not realizing that youth have to be engaged if you want a future world of respect and equality for all.
Is there any particular environment or management structure or task that you would find disqualifying for your own career goals? And I'm trying to reach to what kind of environment or barriers that I'm not suggesting exist with us, but I'm trying to get to your own personal values and philosophies with respect to what kind of a situation or barriers in a career or work environment that you would find disqualifying for your own vision of your life and your happiness.
Obviously, if an organization is maybe not misusing spending of funds, really not educating the community, and if it was really out there, that would be a challenge for me. But I have been able to work in different environments, different types of board members, working boards versus governing board. Been able to work with strong personalities. I'm able to listen and uplift what their vision is. I'm pretty much able to adapt and work in any type of environment. That's who I am.
And that's good to hear. My last question to you before I pass it on to my colleagues is, can you describe just the work tasks you find most interesting and least interesting? And that's sort of the day-to-day work tasks that you enjoy the most and those that you might find least interesting. I'm not saying that you're implying that you wouldn't do them. I'm just trying to get a sense of what it is that you really like to do and what that you not like as much, let's say.
I definitely love to think of programming ideas. You know, I love working with individuals. My strength is working in a coalition, sharing ideas, and then see how whatever that program framework that we come up with, that it moves into the areas of having goals and objectives and its impact in the community, and how do we sustain that work and then making a difference. And once we achieve those goals, just seeing the smiles of the people we impact, especially families and youth. That is what I love. You know, it's about the community. I think in every project, there has to be a soul. That soul is what it drives the organization, and where you have the youth, the families, the loved ones, everyone involved working together. That is what drives me. I don't like tracking receipts in terms of having to submit reimbursements. It's a tedious task. It has to be done. That type of task, I find it sometimes to be challenging, but I think everyone does not like putting the receipts together. I think in other areas is probably, I'm a good communicator and also a good writer, but sometimes I might get stuck in trying to formulate a thought. But when I have that challenge, I do talk to other people to get feedback and idea. So in case I have a kind of a writing block, I'm able to move forward.
Thank you.
Hey, Eddie, Dimple here. So a lot of my questions are going to be geared towards the type of tech expertise you have, how comfortable you are with like project management systems that are online. Also, you know, a big part of the monument is having a digital aspect. So having someone that has the skills to see that vision and get us to the finish line will be crucial. So the first question that I have for you is, aside from email, because we all know everyone emails and texts, what type of technology do you use in your day-to-day work life? How do you streamline your tasks and your workflow? Is there anything that you use to kind of stay on top of things with technology?
I definitely use Google Calendar. I moved away from writing on paper in a calendar to more Google. I find that to be more easy to track my activities and also to connect with other individuals, and also like using the Google Drive, using in terms of documents, sharing documents, and to work together. I love using that. Currently at Latino Equality Alliance, I am the person who oversees a nation builder program. So I oversee the e-blasts, our website, event web pages, also oversee our social media aspects. In terms of digital, like videos, we don't have the technology at Latino Equality Alliance to do real fancy videos. You know, we do our best using our phones and then edit the best we can to really tell our stories via social media and sometimes the e-blast. But I'm a person that's willing to learn, and to develop my skills in that area, I would definitely welcome it and appreciate it.
Okay, thanks. Sorry, I'm jumping on and off mute, so there might be a couple of seconds of delay. So have you ever used any online project management systems like Asana? Have you heard of that? Or an online checklist, for example, where you can kind of keep groups on task using technology? Because our board has standing meetings. One is a group board meeting, and then we meet as a committee. But then in between all that, we have to stay on task, and we can't always meet. And sometimes we can't always jump on a conference call either. So I think it's important for us to always stay organized and informed with what's going on. So what sort of tools do you use there? Or what do you envision for us?
Well, I'm going to be honest, because of the capacity of the current organization we're small, we don't use those particular programs. But I find that to be very useful. We have lately been trying to use video conferencing for our board meetings. We learn, you got to pay a fee if you want to go beyond 45 minutes with some of these video chats. So now we learn how to pay bills regarding that. But I think in terms of my capacity, because it's a small organization, I have not been familiar with those programs, but I am willing to learn. And if needed right before day one, I will learn those programs.
Okay. And then one last question about tech. This is more on a higher level. Even on a personal level, have you experimented with any virtual reality, augmented reality, anything having to do with mobile apps? What are some of your favorite mobile apps? What kind of technology have you just experienced that's more than just, the basic stuff like Google and email and text?
I can be honest, just basic. I have not done virtual technology. Only time I have done virtual is if there was an exhibit somewhere and I was able to go in and participate in an exhibit. In terms of seeing a virtual world, wearing those Google eye goggles, that is the extent of it. But also, as I mentioned before, I'm a person that wants to learn and sharpen those skills if given the opportunity.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to go ahead and pass it off to Jorge. He's got some questions for you as well. Jorge, all yours.
Jorge, I think you're on mute.
Yeah, you're on mute, Jorge.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Sorry about that. So obviously, as you know, in almost every non-for-profit, you have fundraising things that you need to develop and come up with, and the AIDS Monument, it's not an exception. So we're at the last end of a fundraising, which a lot of times it's the most challenging. We have a budget of, I believe, $5.2 million, and we still need to raise the last $700,000 in the next couple of years. And if you're familiar with fundraising campaigns, the first people that you go after is your low-hanging fruit. Now we have the challenge of that the last push in fundraising be challenging. So money for growth and success depends upon increasing and diversifying funding sources. So if you could just tell us, how would you go about building successful and sustainable, specifically development programs or fundraising programs for the AIDS Monument?
Well, I think obviously, first of all, and I know you guys have done amazing work over the past few years in terms of fundraising. I really believe, first of all, any type of movement needs to have a voice, a face, someone that could really do the storytelling of the importance and the impact of the AIDS Monument. Because if you want to get additional supporters and donors, there's someone that they got to listen to and understand why this project is so important. I think, first of all, there's always an opportunity to expand the base of support. I don't know currently what your base has been, if it's just West Siders or people in the West Hollywood area, but I know there's people that are willing to donate that live in Whittier, Almonte, Southgate, and it's basically going into those communities, doing some storytelling, and getting people to support the project by being a donor, and also talking to maybe some corporate folks that are not really aware of the monument, and maybe getting them to be more aware and getting them to be supporters. But I think at the end of the day, is really how do we expand that reach to additional people. And I think for myself, you know, I'm a native Angelino from the East Side. Used to live in West Hollywood for 14 years, but I do have a strong network of folks that care about HIV and AIDS and want to make a difference. That would be willing to donate, and it's basically just going out there, talking to people, and really expanding the reach. And I think that's going to be very important over the next couple of years. Is really going out there into communities to get support. Because I was able to go on your website and listen to all the stories. And I was thinking, I know you have an event here in West Hollywood where people were able to come and do some storytelling. I think having those type of events in South LA, East Los Angeles is very crucial. But that's a place where you could definitely get more support for the monument.
Right. So maybe to be a little more specific, like what would you prioritize if you were to start working with the AIDS Monument? What would you prioritize in that first year to grow and diversify this funding that we're talking about? And then we talk about where you will go and why. Okay.
Well, first I have to take a look at what where you have done all your fundraising for, so I don't replicate it. The goal is to strengthen it and to make it grow. But I think first priority is definitely going to communities of color. You know, I think there's a lot of folks out there that are willing to support the monument, but what is needed is to go down and talk to them and tell the story. I think that will probably be a high priority for the organization, because you also want to build support for the monument as well in all communities of Los Angeles. And I'm saying that there is support in all communities, but I'm sure we could uplift more support in communities that probably have not been reached out to yet.
Okay. And how would you go about utilizing your current resources that we have? And I'm specifically talking about, so our board of directors with the AIDS Monument is very active and hands-on and have working roles with the monument, but they also have their fundraising requirements as part of joining the board. So what do you think the board's role in fundraising and development should be? And specifically, how would you support that participation of the board?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I'm sure we're all going to work together to have a fundraising plan, whether we use the current one or kind of strengthen what is currently have in place. But But I think it's important for the role of the ED is to meet with each board member, see what the board member needs in terms of helping to get their fundraising efforts continuing. And I think the role of the ED is to support all board members and to be out there and to be the spokespersons and to do a lot of storytelling. Because that's going to be the person that's going to be the ambassador and support and represent the organization. So it's basically just working together, you know, whether it's organizing events, talking to donors, having lunch, whatever it is, that it's a team effort. It's an effort to work together to help raise the money.
Great. Is there anything about the AIDS monument that you see as a uniquely challenging in terms of building fundraising momentum, and how you will address that?
I think there are some folks out there that feel that it's 2018. Why do we need another monument today? Why, you know, maybe funds could be put somewhere else. I really believe that monuments are symbols, are places of reflection, reminders of what has happened in the past. It's a place to celebrate to do some storytelling, to talk about the history. I think what we need to reach out to those people who might not be on board, but the reason why we need something like an AIDS monument and memorials is just something similar to why we always will never forget what happened in the Holocaust. You know, when people did not take action to stop injustice, to stop a harm, people got hurt. And in this pandemic, a lot of people stood quiet and a lot of lives were lost. And I mean the ones that stood quiet were the ones who were government or possibly folks who put stigma and rejected folks. That silence is what hurt a lot of people. And I think it's so important that this monument be used as a tool to remind ourselves, to educate folks. You know, we also got to think about the future. Our youth need to be told of this story. They need to come visit the monument and learn about the history, learn about the individuals we lost, so we don't have another epidemic, we don't have another AIDS, you know, and it's so important to have this monument. And that would be the story to tell to those who might not be on board yet for the monument.
Okay, that's great. I think that's all I have for fundraising questions. So I'll pass it on to...
I can take over on staff management. Eddie, before I do that, what's the budget that you're working with now at the in your current position?
It's $230,000.
And how do you raise that money every year, and how much of that goes to operations?
Operations. I've been ED for
staff costs.
Oh, staff. Okay. So I've been ED for 2.5 years with Latino Quality Alliance. I'm the first ED. Before, we just had one staff member, and it was our board president that supervised that individual. Since I became ED, I'd be able to increase our capacity where we're able to have 3 full-time staff members, but really expand our programming to really engage youth and families. What we do is we make sure, I think in terms of the percentage that goes to salaries, I believe through a small organization, I would say it would be about like 40–50% will go towards salaries. The rest will go to operation costs. That would support everything from, you know, program incentives, marketing, communications, telephone, you know, indirect costs, insurance. The rest will go to that.
And what project management or events experience do you have? The reason I ask is because a lot of what we're going to be doing with the digital experience and with the overseeing the construction and installation of the physical monument, the art piece in the park, will involve project management.
Well, okay. At the Wallace and Morias, it was about 12 years. I was oversee the programs and community engagement efforts. I had a staff of about 8. So I was able to supervise and develop their skills and oversee program development. I was also the second person in command, so I oversee a lot of the operations of the organizations. Also deal with budgeting, quality assurance, evaluations. My role with the monument, my executive director and I, basically, we had a project construction manager, project manager that oversee the development of the monument, but it was in relationship with the city of LA, and basically we worked as a team. So I was able to see every effort in terms of how to build, construct a monument in terms of all the permits that you need to get, you know, the environmental impact review that needs to happen, and whatever other requirements is needed for the city. And currently right now I supervise, as I mentioned, we're a small organization, but I do supervise 2 staff members, but also oversee a development consultant that helps us with our fundraising efforts.
Okay. How would you describe your management style?
That's a very good question. You know, I like to work together as a team, but I also like to allow individuals to work on their own and to allow them to move forward with the project. I think I'm a person that is able to oversee the whole project effort and see if there's a challenge there, then how do we work together to solve that challenge. I like to communicate. I think it's so important. I think communication solves a lot of problems. I think listening is very important, but I also like to be organized. I like to make sure that we think of every step of the way. I'm very good in time management. So if we know we have a project that is due 2 months from now, then you work backwards to get to the end. And if there's any times where I feel like we're working on 2 efforts and we're coming across a timeline, then what is very important against that is that we all communicate to ourselves, but also communicate to other people that we are accountable to, whether it's the city of West Hollywood. So that through communication, it solves a lot of missteps that may happen.
So how do you set those expectations and then make sure that people live up to their performance, what's expected of them in terms of their performance?
Well, I expect everyone just to work hard. I also, have a person realize that mistakes do happen. And when mistakes do happen, the best thing to do is to analyze those mistakes and see how we could correct those mistakes so they don't happen again. As I mentioned before, I'm a big believer in communication with each other. I believe in time management, and I believe that we all make each other accountable.
And last question in this section, how do you think that we can best utilize volunteers? Because we have a working board, we have an executive director, we would probably have an assistant, either part-time or full-time for you, but it's a pretty small staff and a working board of people who are busy in their own jobs. So getting volunteers to help us with our projects is helpful and necessary. How do you think we can best achieve getting a robust group of volunteers?
Well, volunteers to every organization is like a pot of gold. It's like these people are committed to and wanting to make a difference in an organization. And we're all going to work together to go out there and identify. I think the ED would have a critical role in going out there, talking to people and recruiting volunteers. Once you have a base of volunteers, you do need to develop their leadership skills, have them be aware of what the project's about, the mission, and really identify what skills they have. So you could put them in the right place and utilize them importantly, because there's a lot of events. I know there's going to be socials and mixers, there's going to be outreach opportunities, and we're going to need to rely on volunteers because Board members, I understand you have jobs, you're busy, and you can't be there everywhere. So it's going to be my role to uplift key individuals in the community to come and help out in terms of getting the message across.
Okay, thank you. I think, Jorge, you're next with fiscal management.
Yes, so we're a very, very small organization, and currently one of our board members, Craig Dougherty, and one of the founding members of the It's Monuments, he's an expert in finance. So he acts as a sort of our CEO and CFO, I should say, of our managing our money. So he couldn't make the call today last minute, so I'm going to take over for him just to ask a few questions about that. So I know you talked a little bit about what your responsibilities in operational and sort of budget management was with the Wallace Memorias, but currently, what are your responsibilities for setting up and managing budgets in your current role?
Yeah, so my job at Latino Quality Alliance is to take a look at all the funding sources, and then also what we know we need to pay in terms of salaries, insurance, and all that, and then taking a look at all the funding sources and putting the budget together. And I got to make sure that we got project in the future. If we know that we have to spend, say, $5,000 in marketing over the next 12 months, then from what funding sources will pay for that particular expense. I tend to be a little conservative, very conservative on spending, because I think nonprofit money is it's valuable, you know, and you can't spend things. And I try to be very reserved and cautious in making sure that there's funds needed to pay and that we don't over purchase stuff that might not be necessary. So I tend to be very reserved when it comes to spending, but I also want to make sure that everyone's very transparent and that all financial information is out there. I know the role of the ED is to set the budget, work with the board on the budget, and then definitely work with the board when it comes to all the spending expenses.
Right. So along those lines, what would you say has been your greatest financial or operational challenge you've ever faced, and how did you resolve it?
I think when I was working at the Wallace and Morias, you know, there were times where we were like, we didn't have really a fundraising component in place, like a development person. And there was times where we were short in funds, or we were relying on government grants to come in, and maybe the grants might be late. I think those challenges in terms of how we could spend on the expenses and not having the funds there was great. But what I did was, towards my last years at the Wallace and Morias, I told Richard that we need to now start a donor program to where we get people to bring money in. And so we started raising money through donors, and our first fundraising event brought in $6,000. And I think that awakened the organization to realize that we can't just rely on government funds, but we got to take a look at other funding sources out there, whether it's through foundation, but mostly among our supporters, or will be willing to give.
How much did you that activity?
I'm sorry, you went in and out. You said how much?
How much did you say you raised in that activity?
That first one was $6,000. 6,000. And for like Latino Quality Alliance, we just started having an awards event. Our first awards event, which was about 3 years ago, it was small. We had it at someone's house. It generated $6,000. Last year, we moved it to a larger location, and we got some corporate sponsor. We raised about $20,000. And this year, we took it to another location, and we raised about $50,000. So it's just progression. We're a small organization, and I'm working, you know, with board members that are learning the routes of fundraising. But I do understand, in terms of raising money, what needs to happen on an annual basis, so there's financial growth.
Right, and I think along those lines too, in terms of board of directors, development of your board of directors and developing relationships with them, as you're talking about that. Before I ask my questions, how many board members do you have at the coalition?
We have 9.
9, okay. So what I want to ask you is, what is your experience that you have working with or for board of directors on similar governing bodies?
My experience, I think what everyone experiences with board members, you know, it's learning how to work with the individuals, but also seeing where their strength is in terms of being supportive to the organization. Some people don't like to ask money. Some people like to organize events. So it's really understanding what that person's skills that they could bring to the organization, and how do you uplift those skills. So we're able to help raise the needed resources for the organization. So it's basically building relationship with each board member, and then seeing how we can work together to uplift their skills.
Right. Taking some notes. So if you were to start working with us, how would you describe your vision working with the AIDS Management's board of directors as an executive director? And what are the key expectations of us? Just tell us about any work that you have done to strengthen board effectiveness in your path.
Okay. I think it's very important that we really strengthen the community work, the community engagement, building support. I think this monument has an opportunity to really reach out key community neighborhoods that have not been reached out to before, to build support. And I believe that in the final 2 years, the key thing is to raise the final funds that's needed. It's also to work on that programming that's needed for the organization, especially the digital programming, but also engaging the community to build that support. Because when you engage community, you build power, and through power, you get the voices that's needed, but also you get the people who are willing to help support the organization with the gifts.
Okay. That's it for me. Thank you, Eddie.
Eddie, I'm just going to ask you one further question on board relations. You would report to the executive committee and have a lot of day-to-day interaction with Mark Lehman, who's the chairman of the board. But of course, at the same time, the ED is supposed to be leading and directing the board. So how do you sort of straddle that, leading the board while at the same time working for the board?
Well, I think obviously, first of all, we all have a shared vision and mission. That's the most important thing. I think since this organization is not like a service provider, it's more of a building a monument. It's navigating the different entities that are involved, and seeing how we could all work together. People that tell me I'm very diplomatic. In terms of my diplomacy, I'm able to work with different individuals, engage people to be in the same room together to move forward. I think obviously it's going to be a collective unit, and then my job is to make sure that we go out there and sell the vision, develop the program that's needed, and to help make sure we sustain ourselves by fundraising.
Thank you. So we've been talking for over 45 minutes. Unless anyone else has any additional questions that they really want to ask, I thought I would turn it over to you to see what you'd like to ask of us. Does anyone else have a question that they wanted to throw to Eddie before we open it up to his questions?
Not me.
Okay, go for it, Eddie.
I'm good, yeah.
Okay, so in the digital programming, can you kind of maybe talk about more, what is that vision you would like to see at the monument? And do you feel it's going to be tied into any outside organizations?
Dimple, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, sure. I'll answer the last part of your question. As far as outside organizations go, it would be nice to have some strategic partners in place, especially in the form of a sponsorship. So, thinking big picture, like a Google or a Samsung, someone who could power the technology that we'd want to use at the monument, or may have something that's cutting edge and new and fresh that we could use, because it would be a great case study for a company like that to underwrite our technology and then also maybe do joint press releases and put things out there that are press worthy. I think having a name like that with an outside organization would be crucial. But it's more of a wish list item at the moment. And we are putting together sponsorship decks and information so that we can get to a place like that. So the answer to that is yes. And then for the first part of your question, what we're envisioning right now is basically a tour that you take on your mobile phone that is powered by artificial intelligence. So picture opening up your internet browser, going to a short, memorable link. And then from there, you are kind of in a texting interface with like the Siri of the monument or the Alexa of the monument that kind of walks you through the different parts and the symbolism behind it and all that. It's supposed to be a linear tour, but it can be kind of like a choose your own ending type story too. But for now, we're going with the linear tour. And that would just serve as a way to get people engaged and to have that digital experience there. However, my gut tells me, and this is something we're still discussing right now, that's just one of maybe a couple of the ideas. I think we still need something that's a bit bolder than that. Sorry, a bit bolder than that. And we just don't know what that is right now. But right now, the intention is to have some signage there. You scan it or you type in a link into your phone. It opens up a texting interface inside of the mobile browser. And then from there, you get walked through this virtual tour through your phone. So that's what the plans are right now. And we're kind of working through it all.
So there's no plan to have like a digital string at the monument. It's just more via using your phone.
Currently, yes. I mean, there's still going to be ways to integrate that mobile experience back to the website. We'd want to, capture some data, like an email address. We'd want to maybe even capture a donation as well. So there's going to be multiple parts to it, but essentially the user would be able to experience this digital component using their mobile phone, because quite frankly, it's the easiest way to get digital at the monument without spending tens and thousands of dollars on hardware that would then affect the art piece, right? So that's the intention right now.
Okay. Has there been any other organizations or that has similar kind of digital programming that you have interest in, that you've been exploring?
We had, I would say at the beginning of this year, we did hire a tech consultant who did all that research for us. And what she found is that in the nonprofit space, even going very down to our website, we've been pretty innovative and forward thinking in all of it all. So in all of it. So we're kind of ahead of the curve in that sense. We've not been able to find too many nonprofits specifically within this genre of AIDS, HIV, that's tech savvy or as ambitious as we are with the technical stuff as we've been.
Okay. And it's still to be determined whether it's the city would that handle the digital programming or whether it would stay with the foundation?
I believe, and please jump in, guys, if I'm wrong. I believe we want to control that aspect, but it's still going to be obviously a collaboration. I think as far as programming and content goes, online and offline, I think we want to remain in control of that.
Okay. And has there been any ideas or plans to maybe work with the school district to making sure that this could be part of a curriculum within the schools?
We've actually talked about that quite a bit with other candidates as well as you. People seem to bring it up as a recurring theme. I think it's because it's a good way to reach the youth. But I think it's something we also have to assess, because what I'm also hearing from our development consultant is that donors who are supporting us may find it surprising that we're doing a curriculum, because according to John Guile, there's so many other curriculums that already exist. So we don't want to do more of the same. So maybe that would be a strategic partnership instead of something we create from scratch. So that's something that needs to be discussed. But we do need to find some creative and unique ways to get the youth involved in this movement.
Okay, thank you. In terms of, I read that there's a council of advisors. Is that council still in operations right now, or is that something that still needs to be worked on?
Yeah, we do have a council of advisors. It is not a group that we have activated as much as we should and would like to. So that would be something that we would want our new executive director to take on as a significant part of their job, because we want to be able to take advantage of the expertise that these people have, as well as the connections that they have for purposes of fundraising and outreach and marketing.
So programming. So I know digital programming is going to be like the most high priority aspect of it. Is there any additional programming that you hope to see happen over the next couple of years outside of digital?
I would say that a number of the events that we do fundraising events, and we tend to do events that are designed to spread awareness and allow us to capture digital content. So principally those have been our events. I think as we get closer to installation, we'll want to have more events that are about just general awareness. We haven't done a lot of what we would call retail or sort of lower dollar fundraising, but I think when we get closer to having the monument built, when we have an actual approved design from the city, is probably when we would do more events designed to just show people what the monument will be, and to expand the reach of our fundraising to include people who aren't necessarily major donors, but would like to show their support in other ways.
And I have quite a few questions here. In terms of the city approval process for the monument, at what stage is it at?
We are at this point waiting for the completion of the city's outreach program. They put together outreach using an organization they had hired. So it's not something that FAM is orchestrating or controlling in any way. Once that outreach project is finished and we get the report, we then will see the extent to which we want to include any of those recommendations in the design and alter the design. Then once we've come up with a proposed a proposed design that is supported by the board, we would take that to the city, and it would go through the various approval processes within their committee structures, and then once approved by the various committees, it would go to the council for approval.
Okay. Has it gone through an environmental impact review?
Not yet, because we don't have the design, the final design yet.
Got it. Okay. Let's see what I'm. Let's see how we got that digital point vision. What is your expectations over the next couple of years for the executive director?
Jay, do you want to take that one?
We have a crucial activity period coming up with respect to this final design and finalizing the community outreach, which will need some direction and obviously assistance by the ED. Going through the city approval process also has active involvement by the executive director. And then once the city gets the park ready, the monument final design will need to be ready to then be going through the manufacturing process, the installation process. The executive director would be involved very heavily day to day with respect to dealing with the design committee of the board and installing certain aspects of the monument. Some the city has agreed to install, for example, the footers of the traces that you've seen on the website. Those things have been divvied up, but they're subject to change, frankly, given that the final city approval hasn't happened. We're hoping that we've identified all of the scope of the project, but certainly we expect to not be surprised if some things change. So that management would be active, and obviously a parallel track will be the fundraising to make sure we have what we need and more to go forward and be able to plan ahead, as well as the digital component, which should dovetail very quickly into being implemented and decided upon and strategically pushed through to the community and our fundraising support and the buy-in that we're going to need from everyone. So it's going to be a very fun 2 years, I think, with respect to all of this very good momentum that's already rolling, and to bring it into fruition in 2020 and then beyond. So we need some management beyond that to set in place the health of the organization and what we're doing that we're formulating right now, frankly. So this is a crucial period, and it will be, in my view, for probably 3 years with respect to moving parts. And it's exciting. It's a lot of brain work and leg work. But I think each day will be rewarding because there's going to be each day accomplishments.
Awesome.
Is that getting to your question?
Yes. So follow up, you're saying, well, in terms of raising money, there's still like $500 million to raise. Is that correct?
Approximately, but
yeah.
that's in the physical monument and in our projections with respect to the digital experience. And as we're still evolving with respect to what our needs are, certainly on the digital end, and we still have the city's input and the community outreach input that will touch upon what other needs might arise, or if we limit or grow. So those things are still unknown, but the board has done a very good job about projecting out possibilities, variables, and I feel we're very much in control of the known unknowns, if you will.
Engagement efforts in the past. I know West Hollywood is obviously a very key supporter, and they have invested into the monument. Has there been any community engagement efforts outside of West Hollywood? How to say, like close to downtown, South LA, or East Los Angeles?
Well, we haven't really done a lot of community outreach on our own because we've been waiting for the city of West Hollywood's outreach to be finished. Once that's completed, yeah, I think we would like to do more of a grassroots outreach process. But I think that, again, that will probably happen once we have the design completed, to let people know what we're doing rather than to ask for any more input in how the monument will be designed, because we just can't, we have to kind of finalize it and get going on it rather than continue to develop it. But we do plan to speak to a wider community certainly beyond West Hollywood, yes.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
And I think we probably have time for one more, and then I know that we probably wanted to finish this by 12 or 12:30.
12:30. Just one is: are there benefits for the executive director in terms of like health insurance and dental?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. And there's space for an office. Will there be an office? Is just working from home?
We don't currently have an office for the executive director, so we probably would expect that he or she would work from their home. That could change in the future. We've considered an office, but up to now we haven't done that.
That's it.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for doing this. We really appreciate your time, and it was really a pleasure for those of us who didn't already know you to get to know you. So we will be in touch soon. We plan, a lot of people are on vacation now, so once everyone is back after the holiday, we'll probably convene try to make a decision, and we'll certainly get back to you as soon as we have done that.
Awesome. Thank you so much for the interview.
Thank you, Eddie.
Thank you,
Well,
Eddie.
thank you for organizing it.
Bye.
Now I have to figure out how to hang out.
Okay, so if you guys want to disconnect, you just click the red hang up button. It should be
Oh,
at
right,
the
there it is. Okay, thank you.
top. Bye.
Hey, Dimple.
Hey.
Are we the only ones on, right? Or who's this green person? Someone else on?
That is the main AIDS Monument account that I'm powering all this through. So it's just you and I.
Oh, that was very interesting. Who's your lead candidate so far? Oh, this is being tape recorded, though. Correct?
Yeah, actually it is. Do you want to give me a call?
Yeah, let me call you back.
Okay, bye.
Bye, everyone.